Today on Up Front, closing arguments, a special one-hour edition of Up Front. The candidates for governor in-depth and on the record, just 10 days out from the election. Republican Governor Scott Walker running his third campaign for governor in 5 years.
4 more years, that's what we're going to give you. 4 more great years.
Democratic challenger Mary Burke making her first run for statewide office.
Not only can we do better, but we must do better.
The candidates make the case, why they deserve your vote.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Up Front with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Up Front. Today, we're expanding our program to 1 hour for one last conversation with the major party candidates in the race for governor. It's one of the most watched races for governor in the country. It also appears to be one of the tightest. Recent polls show Governor Walker and Mary Burke running neck and neck. The last Marquette Law School poll showed them tied, each with 47% among likely voters. The winner in this contest will set policy for the next 4 years, maybe more. It's a contrast of two very different visions for Wisconsin. Today on Up Front, I have extended conversations with both candidates. We asked the governor and his opponent to come in for interviews late last week. In our second half hour, we'll be hearing from Mary Burke. But we begin with Governor Walker, who has said this is an election that's all about him. Governor Walker, thanks very much for being with us again.
Great to be back.
I want to ask you about the comment that I saw in a newspaper story about you saying that you understood that this race was all about you. Can you explain what you meant when you said that?
Yeah, and I want to make clear, that's not a cocky statement. The way it sounded, at least in one outlet, made it sound like it. I said in the larger context, that's not saying it's just about me individually. It's really about our record and where we're going. That most people know, to this day, very little about my opponent. What they really know, there's a core group of people who really support what we've done over the last 4 years. There's a core group, for whatever reason, particularly in places like Madison and a few parts of Milwaukee where they really don't like it. And then there's a handful of people left who are undecided, largely because they're trying to figure out who's telling the truth. They hear these numbers, they hear the statistics about jobs and the economy and about the budgets. And I think they're really genuinely trying to figure out where the truth is.
We'll get into that in just a moment. I want to ask you, though, whether or not you feel like you're in trouble right now, because I saw a fundraising letter you sent out to your followers saying, hey, unless I have a massive increase in my spending on this campaign, I could be defeated.
Sure.
Do you think you're in danger of being defeated?
Well, I think you look at the polls, they've consistently been tied. I've been saying for a year, I think I probably said on your show about a year ago at this time, that I thought that this would be a much closer election than many pundits thought, because in that recall election, even though we won by a bigger margin than we did 4 years ago, I have to believe that just some of those people, not all, but some of those people were voting for me against the recall, not necessarily for or against my policies, and they were voting that way based on principle. Now, I have to make a principled argument to them about how Wisconsin's better off than it was 4 years ago and how I'm the one that will make it better off 4 years from now. But we thought it's tight. Plus, remember this, last week the Associated Press pointed out that we're being outspent. Not what conventional wisdom would be. We're being outspent when you include all the groups running ads against us as well as my opponent, compare it to the groups running ads for me in my own campaign, and the fact that at least 3 of the national big government unions, AFL-CIO, NEA, and AFSCME, have all said I'm their #1 target in America. They just want to take me out because I took their power away, put it in the hands of the hardworking taxpayers.
I want to go back to 2010 when you were on this program and we talked about your jobs promise. You had come out with a jobs plan. You said we can create, and I promise you we will create 250,000 jobs by the end of my first term in office. It's clear right now you're at about 40% of that 250,000 total. Is it fair to say that you have to tell the people of Wisconsin, hey, I broke my promise, I didn't do what I said I was going to do?
Well, and I think people clearly know about that. All the polls show people for and against clearly know where we're headed out there. But I think people aren't going to penalize me for aiming big. Remember, when I came in 4 years ago, this state, under Jim Dole's policies my opponent says she supports entirely, had led to more than 133,000 Wisconsin workers losing their jobs. And when I traveled the state and came up with that goal, it was because I saw real people, and I realized they had real families in real communities all across the state, so I aimed high. Now, we made a lot of promises. We've met almost all of them. That's one we haven't yet. But the analogy I use is it's kind of like if a football team had gone 0-16 and you fired the football coach and you brought a new one in, and I had said 4 years ago, hey, I'm going to take us to the Super Bowl. That's my promise, that's my pledge, that's my goal. and we're not at the Super Bowl yet, but we'll go from a 0-16 team to a team that's finally winning again. Now I'm asking as the coach to say, give me a 4-year contract renewal so I can finally get us to the Super Bowl. We're winning again. We're on the right track. I mean, look at the latest numbers just last week. 8,400 new private sector jobs. That's the best September we've had in more than a decade, the lowest unemployment rate since October 2008. And we're fourth, not last, fourth in the Midwest for private sector job growth.
Well, let me follow up on a couple of those points. You talk about the 8,400 jobs. It's a monthly jobs number. At the beginning of your administration, you touted monthly jobs numbers when the news was good. When the news was not as good, people in your administration said the numbers were volatile estimates that were unreliable. Now you're quoting numbers that your administration has called volatile and unreliable. Why should people see that as evidence that your policies are working?
Two reasons. Why, when they were bad just a few months ago, or appeared to be bad, my opponent actually ran an ad on it. So let's do apples to apples comparison. We've actually been up. And the other reason why is we said the gold standard is the QCEW numbers. Those are the year-over-year numbers. They are quarterly that come out 6 months later. Well, we won't have the numbers through the end of 2014 until June of 2015. So obviously,
but as of March, we were 33rd, correct?
Right. Well,
8 out of 10 Midwestern
unlike
states.
being 42nd in the country, which we were during the 3 years that Mary Burke was in charge of jobs, which, by the way, were pretty good years in the nation's economy. 2005, 2006, 2007, well before the national recession, we created nearly twice as many jobs in our last 3 years as the 3 years that Mary Burke was the chief job creator for the state of Wisconsin. It's the only time in the last 25 years the unemployment rate was worse in Wisconsin than it was nationally. So even if you use those numbers, which are numbers in March that were 6 months before, we're saying the most recent numbers, the trend in July and August and September, year over year, not just for the month. Remember, the numbers we said were volatile were just the monthly numbers. Year over year, so from last September to this September, we rank in the top 4 states in the Midwest. That's the 3rd month in a row, and that's how PolitiFact, for example, does it. They do QCEW numbers, the quarterly ones, through the beginning of this year, and then they use the monthly numbers to validate where we're at from that point.
As part of your argument that things are much better now, you say that you know, there were 133,000 jobs lost by the Doyle administration, and it was the policies of Jim Doyle, policies Mary Burke endorses. But was it the policies of Jim Doyle when you look at what happened in this country, when you look at what happened in other states that lost a lot of jobs, sometimes more than Wisconsin, when you look at the housing meltdown, when you look at Wall Street and some of the reckless behavior? Are you saying it's the Doyle policies that caused us to lose 133,000 jobs?
Not all alone, but I said that was the time frame we were in, what we focused on. But again, I would say to go back to people before all that happened, before the housing problem, before the recession, before all those other problems, 2005, 2006, 2007. That's the last time my opponent's been in any office, elected, appointed, or otherwise, other than the school board, which is not a paid position 2 years ago. But during those 3 years, Wisconsin ranked 42nd in the country. If you look at those 3 years, the state created about half as many jobs as we have under the last 3 years, and the unemployment rate was well above, worse off in the state of Wisconsin than it was in the nation. So I say people, even if you're confused on all those other numbers, just compare my last 3 years with the 3 years that Mary Burke didn't just work for Jim Doyle. She was in charge of jobs. That was her focal point. That's what she was supposed to be doing.
Do you think her experience in the private sector counts for anything in her argument that she could do better?
Well, in a similar way, I once worked for IBM and the American Red Cross, but that was years ago. It's been about a decade since any of that's been in place. It's been 7 years since she worked as the Secretary of Commerce. Since then, she's been a great volunteer and a great donor to the Boys and Girls Club. But I think people need to look at that and compare what we've done over the last 4 years. The closest example we have is more than 7 years old, and that's during those 3 years that she was in charge of jobs. In charge of jobs for the state of Wisconsin. That's the closest parallel we have. Now, if it was like some of the other people that have run both on the Democrat and Republican side where they left their family business or they left their own business to run, but that's not the case. She hasn't done that for almost a decade.
So what's the target for the next 4 years? You talked about 250,000. What do you think is doable for this state?
Well,
Should you be in office for 4 more years?
We don't have a specific number for at the end of the next 4 years. We want to get to that original goal. We want to, as I mentioned, we went from a losing team to a winning team, and I want a contract renewal for the next 4 years to get us to the Super Bowl, which was our original goal. It's that 250,000 to get there in this next term. And it's really not because it's just about a jobs number. It's about the fact that it had an impact on real people. Along with that, you know, part of my plan at scottwalker.com is this 62-page comprehensive plan It's really about not only helping us create more jobs in the private sector, but also looking at getting people the skills and the talents and the education that they need to succeed to get jobs that are paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 or more a year.
I'm going to move on, but to wrap up this part of the conversation, so you don't think it would be right for someone in the state to say, you know, he tried, but he failed. He didn't come close. I want to do something different this time around.
Well, if you think the answer is to put somebody in who created about half as many jobs as we did over the last 3 years when the economy was much better in the nation than it is today, well, then I think even under that comparison, that would be like saying we went 0-16, we now have a winning team, but we're going to replace the coach that got us winning again with a coach who is the offensive coordinator for the team that went 0-16. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you go to a losing coach?
Let me take a quick break. When we come back, more with my extended interview with the governor, including his plans for a second term in office, taxes, schools, transportation. We'll be right back.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.